Hello, everybody out there. This is Jerry. That's Jessica.
Hey guys, welcome back.
And we are here again at the Lucero Library presenting to you guys Art the Hard Way, Creativity on the Inside. This is the Meet Your Monster workshop. We have our awesome guests with us, Mr. Justin and Mr. Matt, who will be joining us a couple seconds here to show you guys this really awesome project that they're doing together. But we just want to keep you guys invited and to stay tuned while I bring them in.
Hi.
How's it going, gentlemen?
Hello.
Hey guys.
Good, how are you guys? I'm Justin. This is Matt. We're part of Art the Hard Way, and tonight we're going to be doing one of two workshops that we plan to do this month. So definitely keep tuning in. We're going to have another one for you next week. Tonight, I'm really excited to introduce the workshop, Meet Your Monsters. Meet Your Monsters is a huge part of the prison program that we teach. About 4.5 years ago, I came across a self-published book by this guy right here, and was just blown away by the content and just the material. And so quickly made connection with him, and we haven't looked back since. So I'm going to let Matt talk a little bit about Meet the Monsters and how that all came into working in the Supermax prison.
Hi, so I'm Matt Refic, and Meet Your Monsters is a 60-page coloring book and self-assessment, which I self-published in 2016. And it came across Justin's radar, who at the same time was building a prison art program at the prison facility in Florence, Colorado. And looking for material for the program, he reached out to me and see if I'd be willing to share the book with him and see if it might be a good fit for the program. And it turns out that it was. So that kind of began our relationship of what we started working on together, which has formed into what we call CAP, the Creative Arts Platform, which is a art and self-expression and self-discovery program that we run within FCC Florence. And it's been a really wild journey. And so Meet Your Monsters was the first kind of entry point for me to come in and start working on the program. And the book has really served as like an entry point for my role in the program of being the artist in residence of sort, kind of the professional artist on hand. And then so the lessons that we teach vary depending on the subjects. But one of the lessons that we teach is Meet Your Monsters. And so each member of each participant in the program gets a copy of the book, and they are then allowed to take those back to their cells and work on them. And then at the same time, we have conversations about what Meet Your Monsters is. And essentially, it's a coloring book, but it's a self-assessment that causes self-reflection in the parts of ourselves that we don't always look at, which is really valuable in a prison system because it's looking at our fears and our depressions and what makes us angry. And we then use that information and we make works of art out of it, or they individually do, or they just contemplate it while they're coloring the monsters inside of the book. So it's been a really key part of the book, and it's been something that's been really well received within the prison system. And it's really a key part of CAP because a lot of what we do is about discovering self-reflection and then using that self-reflection to express that and to work through those issues. And Meet Your Monsters is one of the lessons which we teach in that. So for the workshop tonight, we have kits that are available at the Lucero Branch Library that include a copy of the book, but tonight we're going to actually draw one of the monsters and then color it as well. So in the tutorial that we are about to go through, if you don't necessarily have to have one of the kits, but if you do, that's great. If not, you can just use a pencil or coloring pencils or crayons or anything that you have. There's really no wrong way to go about this. It's really just a way for us to have some self-reflection and create art at the same time, and use art as a form of facilitating a type of healing within yourself. Not necessarily that it is healing, but it can lead to some self-reflection that can be very beneficial to ourselves. So I hope that everybody enjoys the tutorial.
Meet your monsters. We can start off today by
looking through a copy of the book for inspiration of different monsters which I've drawn in the past. Or if you have ideas for your own type of monster, go ahead and go with those. And for those of you that did not get a copy of the book, you can just watch along with the video. And so in our packets, or if you don't have a packet, you can use just a piece of paper, and what we have is coloring pencils and a regular pencil. The video is sort of sped up, so you don't really have to keep up with me. Just follow along as you can and make your own monster and meet your own monster. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm starting off by drawing lightly with a yellow colored pencil. Now, if you have a regular pencil that can be erased, that may work better for you. But in this case, I decided to experiment with something kind of new. And instead of using a pencil and erasing like I normally would do, I just started off with a colored pencil. Now, colored pencils can be somewhat difficult to erase. So it's important to start with a light colored pencil if you're going to do that, because you have to be able to somewhat be able to go over it. So in this monster that I'm drawing, I'm thinking about what I want to address. So as these projects come along, they're really about expressing ourselves and expressing the things within ourselves that are sometimes difficult to express, such as anxiety or depression, or sometimes unhealthy to express, such as anger or frustration. And so what I do is I think of things that represent those things. So in this lesson, I'm giving an overview of really what self-expression is. And to me, self-expression is the coming forth and coming out of our feelings, the things that we're feeling internally, and how can we externalize those so that we can better understand them and also communicate better to other people. So in the case of this drawing, what I came up with was just a series of shapes, which I then began adding different features to, such as eyeballs, mouths, hands, and a nose. And what I do is after I have colored or sketched the drawing with the light color, I then start coming in and coloring it with the colored pencils and adding the colors which I want, such as adding red to the mouth and to the lips, and redefining my original sketch so that I can make it as detailed as I want it to be. Now, these drawings don't necessarily have to be detailed. They don't have to find any sort of perfection or any sort of form, because the idea of it is really just to get the ideas out. It doesn't have to take a particular form or be necessarily pretty or aesthetically pleasing, because after all, they are our monsters, so they don't really need to have any sort of confinement to them, because they can be whatever we want them to be and whatever we need them to be. And as I color, I color lightly at first always. I always start lightly and then add the darkness afterwards. That way I can have better control over any mistakes that I make. And like I said, like the colored pencils can be rather difficult to erase. So I tend to, especially with drawing with colored pencils, I start very lightly and then add in the darkness. And that carries over to a lot of different forms of art that I do. I tend to start light and then go heavier and heavier and heavier so that the mistakes are easier to fix. And also when I'm drawing, I tend to go, I start with the biggest things and then refine them down, such as I didn't want to start with an eyeball and then build around it. I started by drawing the whole shape of the whole body and then began to add in the details and the different aspects of the drawing, such as the eyeballs, which I'm drawing now, and the refining of the different skills. Now, you can always reference monsters and just copy them and put your own meaning towards them. They don't always have to be from your imagination, though I tend to want them to come from the imagination myself, because I'm addressing topics that are within my imagination. So as I move further along, I just add more and more details, such as adding the colors of the eyes, the pupils of the eyes, the various textures and shapes that I'm trying to pull forth out of this monster so that it takes shape. And I can use as many tools or as few tools as I'd like. It doesn't have to be colored. It can all just be with one pencil. It can be all in just one color. There's really no rules or right or wrong ways to do this. The important thing is that you do the work, and while you're doing the work, you contemplate what you're trying to express with the work. Now, in Meet Your Monsters, it's about addressing the topics within ourselves, which are a little harder to talk about, like our fears and our anxieties and our depressions and the things that we don't always bring forth and discuss. But and when we start to look at those things, we can have an infinite wellspring of inspiration, because all of us as human beings go through those things, such as sadness and anger and frustration. Like they're natural human responses, but the ways that we are bringing them forth isn't always healthy. Such as if you're angry and you choose to hurt somebody, that's not good. But if you're angry and you choose to turn it into a drawing and process it and begin to gain a deeper understanding of why you're angry, then these processes can be really healthy. And art's a very healthy way to process these various emotions and feelings that we go through in life. And so now that I've got my shape in of the drawing and I've added the details that I want, like the various ears, the eyes, and the mouth. And the reason I chose that is because I feel as if a lot of the times our feelings are being influenced by external influences, such as the things that we hear, the things that we see, the things that we physically touch, and our environments, and all of the various factors that make up our life experience. Those things all come into play into what is affecting our mental health. And with this drawing, with this book, with this program and course, I really aim to teach people how to mimic my technique of addressing these issues, and give forth tools which give us opportunities to deeper and better express ourselves. And this is just one example, with drawing monsters, because it's easy to address those issues and make a monster out of the things that we don't want to look at. Because what are monsters except for maybe the things that we avoid and the things that we want to hide from? And by making a drawing out of these things, we're able to maybe not heal the things that are causing those, but we can start to work towards addressing those issues and maybe better seek help, and find better ways to work through these issues and better ways to communicate these issues. And in these drawings, that's what they're really all about, is finding healthy ways of self-expression so that we can better understand ourselves and better understand each other. So after I've filled everything in with the colored pencils lightly, I start to add in the darker lines, such as here. So now I've taken the darker colored pencil and I'm just outlining it. And that'll be a place where some of us want to stop. It makes the whole shape. And some places, and in some cases, this is the only thing we want to do, is just make the lines. But for me, I wanted to add as much depth and detail and character to it as possible so that I can spend a little bit more time with it while I'm contemplating the concept of what gives us feelings and what makes us feel a certain way, which is what I was addressing and thinking about while drawing this drawing. And oftentimes drawing can be just a meditation, if you will, and a space where we can contemplate ideas and bring forth our thoughts about ideas. So as I continue to outline this drawing, I'm thinking of the next steps which I'm going to take, which next I'll start to shade it and add a little depth and character to it, such as I'm doing right now. I'm kind of making just some little shadows and adding some highlights and shading. Now, again, if you don't feel comfortable adding shadows, because it's a bit more of an advanced technique, but it's a fun thing to experiment with. And the fun thing about the monsters is they can be ugly and they can be wrong and they can be messed up, because that's what we're doing here, is we're making works of art that aren't perfect, that are representing our our more ugly parts, our less perfect parts, if you will. And those are all beautiful and they make up who we are. And they're important to look at those things because they are a part of who we are. They are part of our makeup. And through doing processes such as this, you're able to really begin to gain a deeper understanding of who you are and what you're capable of doing, and ways in which you find self-expression to be beneficial in your life. And then you begin to develop your own style of self-expression and your own means of expressing yourself. And so that's why I add a little bit more detail, because I want to go a little further and I want to understand a little bit more, and not necessarily understanding more about the drawing, but while I take the time to put a little more effort into the drawing, I'm able to put a little bit more effort into gaining a greater understanding of not only how art techniques work, but also about how I am interacting with those techniques and how I'm interacting with the world in general. So I can keep working on these drawings for a really long time and add backgrounds and keep adding shadows and keep adding more and more details and various elements to it, or draw a bunch of monsters, or add lettering, or add text, or add, various different things which can come into it. But for the most part, what I like to do is make a drawing and see where it takes me. Let the drawing kind of dictate the journey, and see how much energy I want to put into it and how much time and effort I'm willing to put forth into this drawing. And that really makes it so the drawing is really special to me, because the drawing later on, when I look at it, it comes to represent that journey that I went through, and that lesson that I learned and came to have a greater understanding of while making the drawing. So it becomes sort of a symbol of learning anytime we make any drawing, and that's what it can be. And when you look back at sketchbooks from years past, or your youth, or whenever you made the books or your drawings, you can all do that time in your life. So now what I'm doing is just kind of adding a little bit more color, kind of just playing around with the colored pencils. And part of art and part of this process is playing around and experimenting and moving past those fears, because after all, what is it? If we're confronting our monsters, we're really facing our fears. And a lot of facing our fears can be just the things that inhibit us, such as I don't know how to draw, or I don't know how to color. Well, the only way you learn how to do it is by doing it. And that's what is most valuable in this process and in this book and in this project. And you don't have to have the book to do this project. You can simply just take a pencil or color pencils and make it happen. And find the final details and refine it down to however you want, and then that becomes your monster. And this was today's understanding of the things that make us have feelings, and this is my understanding of it today. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Meet your monsters.
So that was Meet Your Monsters by this guy right here. Matt Refic has been such an incredible part of the creative arts platform at FCC Florence. What started off as just another productive activity that the participants could do in their cells became so much more. Matt became completely entwined with our program and more or less worked full time last year as a volunteer, putting in over 300 hours in the CAP program. So we were so grateful. And he's we're co-developing this thing as we go each and every month that we continue to evolve. So Meet Your Monsters and all the wonderful benefits of looking at your shadow self, looking at kind of the deeper things that you need to work on has carried over into so many of the other lesson plans. So we're so grateful for everything you do, man.
Thank you. When I wrote this book, it was the beginning of a journey for me, and it was me expressing the need for self-discovery. And I think that by me producing a book, it was really self-serving, because I started discovering a lot about myself through the process, and it led me on this journey that brought me into essentially the most highly secured prison in the world. And I've been able to share these ideas with people that have a lot of times had a lot of struggle in their lives, and I've been able to share this project with them. And in sharing that, I've learned more about myself and human nature than anything else that's ever come across in my life. And certainly, I think that it's been most valuable in the lesson that it taught me. And that the most valuable thing that's really come out of it for me is to gain those understandings of what drives us to do things that are perceived as negative, and then learn to forgive those things. And not only just forgive them within yourself, but forgive them in other people as well, because those are our monsters, is the things that we're holding on to. And we need to learn to forgive each other and love one another, because that's really, to me, what meeting your monsters is. It's about meeting them, and the way that you let your monsters go is to forgive them and show them love. So that's really the main thing that's come out of it for me. So I really appreciate you guys giving us this platform.
Thank you guys for sharing that, and thank you for sharing the journey with that. And for anybody that would like a kit, we still have a number of them still available. So please call us and we can send out a kit to you. We're still doing curbside, so stay tuned for any other some fun workshops coming up. So thank you again.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.